we just opened up, I suppose, with a few questions around just sales in general, and we just had a bit of back and forth about, as sales changed because of the virtual world we're now in, or the digital revolution that's unfolding. So I think we'll pick off there. And I think one of the great things we did leave on is we were discussing about sales fundamentals. And I think these things, to your point earlier, Adrian, they don't necessarily change that much. And I think one of the things we have spoken to you about a few times is sharpening the sword in this area. And I think that'd be a great place to start, because Liam and I have had so many great calls with you around this, and you've definitely helped us out. Like, what are your sales fundamentals, and how do you think people can apply these to their life and business?
Yeah, great question. It's actually a two-part question, because you're also talking about virtual sales, and is that different? And then what are some great sales fundamentals, and what can we learn from them? So, you know me, I always try to be slightly unorthodox. So I'm going to ask you guys something first.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Terminate the stream. Turn it off.
Turn it off.
That's not how it works.
Oh, sorry. I did, and as always, I didn't read the rule book before I started. So when you guys think of the word fresh, what do you know, away from it being fresh movement, what does fresh mean to you guys?
So for me, fresh always conjures up the idea of like a sliced apple, or
Nice.
I suppose the feeling of something being new and exciting. That's the way I always think of
I
it.
love that answer.
Yeah,
Liam?
I'm the same. It's almost like the word to me, fresh, is almost like innovating, always doing something new. So it is fresh, like it's never something that's been old and used before. It's always got to have like a new spin on it. That's sort of my interpretation.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's kind of similar.
Yeah, they're different answers actually, but it is similar. Like, because Gareth, you talked about that nice fresh slice of the apple, and I am a fan of that answer. It's also, everyone can picture that in their heads, if you know what I mean. And that is talking about, you think of things like fresh food or anything fresh like that, that contrary to what you said, Liam, that actually you can eat an apple every day of the week. But if you buy an apple today and you eat it in 2 weeks, you're actually not going to enjoy that experience.
Not
actually,
fresh.
if anything, what's the truth? You're going to throw the apple away, aren't you, before you can get to that
stale.
Yes, so it's no longer fresh, but it isn't new and innovative. It's just fresh. And what makes it fresh is it's ripe, it's now, and that's what makes it interesting for Gareth, because he's going, I want that fresh apple. It doesn't matter that he's actually already eaten a few hundred apples in his life. He still thinks this apple is amazing today, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Then on your side, Liam, being the visionary that you are, you're kind of going, I see fresh as something innovative and new that I've never done before, which is all fresh. I agree. But the challenge with that is it's quite hard to find something brand new to do every day, because we can't eat a brand new meal every single day of the week, if you know what I mean. But we will eat a fresh meal every day of the week. So in that, and there's a I thought about it before we came on, because I love everything about the Fresh brand and what it stands for and what it is. But then I kind of thought to myself, what does actually fresh mean around that? And then how does that apply every day, and how does that apply to sales? So if you take the two things that you guys just answered, and you said, right, I'm going to take Gareth for a minute, which is about being ripe now, etc. That can apply to almost everything. Like, you go and buy a Marks and Spencer's ready meal, St. Michael, the patron saint to the single person who doesn't like to cook. You buy the ready meal, ready for the microwave, and you know it's got a use-by date of however many days. In that period, it's fresh. So you have a window when everything is fresh, and you've got to time it right. So you've got a time when you go to the shop, you've got a time when you then subsequently eat that, and it's also got to be attuned to what your desire is at the time. Do I fancy that meal, etc.? So there is a fundamental that we'll talk about. And then the other one, Liam, that you're talking about, which is, how do I get out of that just being a mundane thing? How do I get out of that being every day of the week, same old, same old? And that comes from your version of fresh, which is something new, unique, innovative, special, as well. And you need them both. And it's interesting. In some respects, I've always seen you guys as the heart and the head, if you know what I mean. And that's a big theme around understanding how to get sales right, and also how to just get everything you do right. As a team, you guys are a perfect complement, because Gareth, you are always the head, if you know what I mean. And Liam, you are always the heart. Now, one without the other never really works. So when your crazy idea, Liam, of milking an elephant comes up, Gareth reasons with you and tells you, why don't we do it as a graphic animation rather than fly to Africa like you suggested? So there's a balance in these things. Your reason. So and with all of that, I'd say take away, like, core to that is understanding that getting things fresh in any situation, because you've got to be fresh for yourself as well as fresh for your audience. And I talked about sales earlier as being about that tip of the spear. It's never, ever about selling ice to the Eskimos. Like, I've heard that phrase over and over. And it's such a bad, poorly used phrase for sales. Yeah. Why would you ever sell ice to Eskimos? Like, one, they have an abundance of it. Two, they don't have any money. So there's no need, no ability to purchase. And if you did sell it to them, where does that leave your heart at the end of that? You've just kind of basically made an Eskimo in debt to you for life for something they didn't even need. None of that works out well in that equation. And the second half of that statement is, and sell, what is it? You guys can tell me. What's the second half? Sand to the Arabs.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too.
You all know that saying. So now my logical brain says, well, shouldn't you sell? And I'm going to say Middle East, not Arabs. I think that's wrong. Shouldn't you be selling ice to the Middle East? Yeah. As opposed to that. And actually, it's a really fundamental understanding. And actually, if ever anybody says that saying, I'd love anybody who's listening to correct them on it and say, no, actually, what I will do is I will sell ice to the Middle East, but I will also buy it off the Eskimos so that they actually have money. And then I will sell it to the Middle East, who have both the need and the money, and make a reasonable profit for myself, make a reasonable profit for the Eskimos, and make the Middle East delighted because they have a really great supply of fresh ice from the North Pole, as it were. And if I just pause on that, like, the fundamentals behind that is actually not believing that sales is about forcing something on someone. It's actually more about finding exactly what someone needs and delivering to that. And then if I add in those other layers that we just talked about your heart, Liam, and your head, Gareth, which is, you do need to make sure it's fresh, Gareth fresh, in terms of it's ripe, it's ready, the timing is right for them. But you also have to inspire them. You have to give everybody something, a bit of what Liam's talking about. Everybody wants that, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we all have a heart and a head. And this isn't about, just a digital execution of a sale, because otherwise you wouldn't need people involved in that. You might as well just, design an algorithm that automatically markets to people, finds an audience, answers the automatic questions with their answers, and then sells them a product. And actually, that isn't what we're about, is it? It's actually about that human-to-human interaction.
It's so true. Like that, the Eskimo thing is a perfect example. Like, I must have heard that like 100 times. Like,
yep.
And you hear it a lot when you're also in sales. And what's interesting is people actually use it as like a a bragging right. Like,
Yeah,
Yes, they
that's what I
do.
was gonna say,
I've
yeah.
said it before. I've said to, like, well, my parents have said it to me, like when I was in sales back in the day. They're like, you could sell snow to Eskimos, and I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
I can, I can
I'm
do
that
it.
guy.
But
I'm that
actually,
guy.
but you're right.
Gareth's got all
Like,
American on us.
Oh,
but
Yeah.
that's the vision I get. Like, it is one of them kind of street salesmen. Like, hey, want some of
it's not
this?
ethical, is it?
Yep.
It's not like,
No.
why would you do that? They don't need that,
Yep.
and it's just it's like, I remember back in the day, I used to be in a retail store selling printers, and I just sold printers for a commission. I didn't really care about
Yep.
what they needed or whatever. Like, all I cared is I sold the printer, got my £5 commission,
hmm
and I got my they come back and bought inks off me, which I got commission on.
hmm
And that's almost the same thing. It like wasn't ethical. It's not right for that person. So it's
It
really
might have been
interesting.
like they might have had a genuine need, but
Mm,
you probably were just told to shift as many units as you
mm,
possibly could.
mm.
So you were kind of somewhat indoctrinated into that thinking
Yeah.
as part of it.
That's where my heart's come from, I think. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
not like that now.
to break out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
exactly.
cracked out of its shell during that process, I'm sure.
He's like a butterfly, isn't he? Or a moth, maybe. I don't
I don't like moths.
know.
One of the things we briefly mentioned earlier, and I think what I'm getting out of this is the word empathy. I think we've said it before, like people are throwing that word around quite a lot, granted, but in its fundamental, is that what needs to be applied to make a sale successful, or is it just something that you should apply because it's the right thing to do? Like, how does that work with empathy?
Well, what you always hope is both, actually. Because if you can find a place where you can marry up the right thing to do with the best thing for your role or your business, then you're in that sweet spot, aren't you? And so, and empathy, you asked another question earlier, which is difference between marketing and sales. Like, empathy is key to both of those, not just sales. And you also raise, like, you've talked about the art of virtual selling at the beginning. I think it's really important to call out that none of this changes whether it's virtual sales or face-to-face sales or anything like that. And sales is not a dirty word. Like, sales is actually about trying to find the right solution for the right audience and actually, like, delivering something of true value. So that's where your point around empathy comes in. And actually, we go back to that fresh meaning ripe. Like, you've got to, and you add all that, the things that you talked about, like, it's not just that the apple has to be ripe. You also have to have the appetite for the apple at the time. So there's no point in trying to give an apple to somebody who doesn't like apples. Like, my daughter hates apples. If you put one anywhere near her, she'll either hit you or run away, one of the two. So again, like, what I've got to do is get the right thing in front of her as well. And that's back to the art of sales is actually not about ice to the Eskimos. It's about actually pausing a moment and also being prepared to ask questions. There's a difference between selling and telling. And a lot of people fall into the trap of doing the second one too much, which is, here it is, I'm going to tell you all about it and just talk at you. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate it when someone does that. If someone just
so
talks
much
at you.
better when someone like asks you the question and you get more. I always look at it as like it's almost like ammunition. Like, when you ask a question, they give you some golden nuggets and you just store them, like, back here.
Absolutely.
And then you're then like, when they say, oh, I dropped my, for example, let's say a phone. Oh, I dropped my phone last time because I'm super clumsy. Put that back here. Then when you come to sell, like, let's say insurance or whatever, or a case of some kind, you say, oh, you said earlier on that you dropped your phone because you're super clumsy. Like, one thing that you might consider is this, and this. And it's like, they're actually giving you all of the information. You just need to put the jigsaw pieces in the right place.
Yep. And that is, that's the art of sales. It's actually not that complicated, but what you do have to do is be clear about the things that you guys just talked about, like empathy, but also being really clear about the right audience for the right product.
Mm.
ICE for the Middle East or whoever else has the need.